In the 90s, someone killed themselves because they couldn't see you and you were visiting Bhopal.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
I have no idea about it.
The one that breaks the mold, Sonali, is Humma Humma, no? Because
Item song, as we call it now.
it got invented there.
I had an English Babu Desi name where Sarfarosh Khan was ready to kill me because I couldn't dance. Everybody talks about Sarfarosh, but I remember telling John, I'm your comic relief in the film. I remember saying this to him. And that's a fact, I'm the comic relief in
Don't mind.
Yeah, exactly.
In 2018, Sonali, when you were diagnosed with the 4th stage cancer.
When the time is limited and you don't know if you're going to make it, there's an immense amount of clarity because the bullshit is out.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank, Shekhar.
Hello and welcome to the Bombay Film Story. This is a podcast that looks at Bombay and films through the lens or the eyes of someone who belongs to both. My name is Mayank, Shekhar. With me is actor Sonali Bendre. Thank you so much, Sonali, for joining us.
My pleasure. I love the name of the podcast.
There you go. I think you'll enjoy this conversation too. But I have to say, the way I introduced you in the sense that you're a person who belongs to the movies, which you have since 1994, if I'm not mistaken.
It took me some time to accept the fact that I do belong here.
No, what are you saying?
It took me a long time.
So you mean, you took a long time to figure whether you belong to the movies or belong to Mumbai?
So I'm not brought up in Mumbai.
Yes. I always thought, because you have a Maharashtrian surname, I always thought you must have been a Bombay person, but clearly not, right?
I'm not. But I came into Mumbai at a very, very interesting time. It was still Bombay at that point in time. But it's just when life was beginning kind of a zone for me. And if you look back at it, I started working in Bombay. And before that was a student life. I was a student when I came in here.
So did you come to Mumbai for education? Is that what happened first?
No, my father was transferred here. And I've traveled across the length and breadth of the country because my father was in the government service.
Okay, so transferable job.
Yeah, transferable job. So it just happened that we came in here and that it was just meant to be, and I started working. And
so this is when you were in school, or was this in college?
Yeah, it was school, but 11th and 12th onwards.
Okay.
I literally.
Although in Mumbai it's junior college then, right?
Yeah. But I did my first year of that in my school itself, and then went on to college. So I did start with literally done my 10th, and I had reached Mumbai. So whatever, the 15th.
And where was 10th? Where did you give your 10 boards?
I gave it in Goa.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's like,
how cool is that?
I've been from Nepal to Chennai.
Really?
Yeah.
So when I say you belong to Mumbai, how does one belong to a city? Is it because they've lived there all their life, which is possible, or is it because they grew up there? Because then wherever you go, people ask where you're from. You just say where you grew up, not necessarily where you live. What is it for you?
People can live in a place and yet not belong to it for the longest time. And I think that is because of the memories that I have here, the life that I have built here. That if you ask me to look, if I look back, I can't identify. Yes, the fact is that I've never stayed anywhere as long as I've stayed here now.
Right.
So
that's a given.
That is a very huge part of it. The other part is that you can live somewhere for a very long time, but I've also made my life here. I've made my relationships here. So for me,
you found love here.
Yes, I found love here. So everything for me that has been amazing has been Bombay.
So why did you say it took you very long to accept that? This is home, or this is your city.
Because when you said that I belong to films. Yeah.
Oh, you meant the movies.
Yeah, I meant the movies.
Oh, why is that?
Complete outsider. Because outsider, I use the word outsider because now it's a huge thing to use that word as a thing. I mean, completely not connected with the industry. So much so that I didn't watch movies growing up.
No, you weren't a movie buff.
And there was no film magazine or a fashion magazine that came. So that world was not something that I knew anything about.
Okay.
So I was very, very raw, very, very naive, and totally not exposed to this this kind of world.
So in which case, I'm pretty sure you had some other plans in life when you were growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you get educated, you give your, I promised my father that let me try this, and I would still be eligible because of my age to, give those exams for IAS and stuff.
So that was your thing.
Yeah, because, you're a daughter of a central government employee, and then, the thing for your father is my daughter is smart and everything, and you can become that, and, you can give this exam and stuff like that. So that was the zone of...
So you are not that person who comes to Bombay with those starry dreams and figures out life in Warsaw onwards to Mira Road perhaps. You were living, I'm pretty sure, in a very good neighborhood because government homes are the best in every town in the city.
In every town
in the country,
but not in Mumbai.
Oh, no.
Not necessarily, because, you know, in Mumbai, property and homes is such that there's a huge scam. Where you sublet the government
homes
quarters that you get
and make rent out of it.
Yeah, and that then is a very messy business. But anyway, not
so which neighborhood did you land in when you came with your parents to Mumbai?
So it was Wadala area
that
I came into, and you know there are all those government quarters in that area is where I started from. But moved out of there really quickly because it was like a culture shock for us and a family. We were 3 sisters, so more so for us.
Are you the youngest or?
No, I'm the middle one.
You're the middle one, okay.
And so it was a culture shock for us, and because we were Maharashtrians, we had a lot of family here. So it really helped that, you know, it was more like my parents were like, we need to get the girls out of this place. That was the...
Because it was too tiny, the apartment, or was the neighborhood rough?
The neighborhood was
a rough neighborhood?
Very rough. And
okay.
Yeah, so it was like a culture shock for us.
Would it be like Antop Hill? Would that be correct?
Towards that. So from Wadala towards Antop Hill, the whole area goes. And so from the school that I went into Ruya College. And which was again a little better. We had relatives in Hindu Colony, in Shivaji Park, in Thane, and you know, so that was the area then one thought we would move into. But the line I got into, I could then move my family to Lokhandwala. So that was a big shift for us, and it was that was a very, very rough period for us. So it started with Bombay being a scary place and turning into something that I love. And same thing with films. I always felt like I didn't belong here, and I always felt like, how do I say it? I've told this story before, but you know, because I knew that there were so many people around me who really worked so hard, had left so much, and came and wanted to work in movies.
Yeah.
And here I was, not really sure if I want to work in movies, and yet I kept getting the work.
Okay.
There was always
so how did you land your first gig?
Imposter complex.
Okay.
I always felt I'm going to get caught now. And people are going to know that, you know, this is not the thing.
How did you land your first gig?
It was, you know, I was doing ad films.
Okay.
And ad films were changing when I started modeling. It was not more like the ramp walk. I was very scared to do those, you know, because of I was very intimidated by everybody around. The culture was very different. But that was the time when ad films were changing. They started telling little stories.
Right.
And so it was great for me. I think I've done every possible hair product, face products, washing powders, everything.
I mean, you did Nirma.
Yeah,
you know,
the soap.
The Nirma soap. That's the most famous song from an ad that I can think of, right?
But that came in later. I'd done so much more before that also. In fact, my Sarfarosh director, John, I'd worked with him in ad films, and that's from where he wanted me for the movie. So that's where.
So basically, you were in college, and someone got in touch with you. I'm presuming a model coordinator.
In college, you do the fashion show.
Right.
So somebody in college, they were doing
college festival and stuff like that.
The girl who was supposed to walk broke her legs. So somebody told me that you should walk, and I'm like, me and walk, and I had no idea. You know, honestly, we were not encouraged to stand in front of the mirror also at home. That was not something that was. So I had no idea why they would ask me to do it. It sounds very strange, but that's the background I came from. So I said, I don't know.
Would you say conservative baground, Sonali? Would that be correct?
Just conservative. Yeah. They were very broad-minded, and my mother was very clear that even if you marry the richest man on earth, my daughters have to be independent, earning
financially
their own money before you get married. So and where education was concerned, they were very, very clear. Whatever it was about education. So very, very broad-minded in certain ways, and very conservative in some other ways. And probably that was maybe I don't know if it's the right word to use, but very moralistic maybe would be the thing. Where you are, it was always like, stop it. It's not about what you look like. It's about what is inside.
Right.
That was constantly drilled into us.
And also that these fields are not, I mean, they're not the most lucrative fields in the sense of they're not intellectually challenging enough.
They're not careers.
They're not careers,
They're not careers.
Right.
Yeah. What happens, you know, you do this, you get a good pension after that, you secure yourself, you know.
Right. Do a real job. There's not a real job. That's really what happened. And so basically you walk the ramp in Ruya College, if I'm not mistaken.
At Ruya College, and it's from there. I was walking the line. Somebody saw me. I got my first campaign.
Wow.
Which was for today, in today's day and age of politically incorrect, but it was for Femme Fairness Bleach, as it was called. Yeah.
I guess you were too young to even think whether this is the right thing to endorse.
No, it's a dumb thing, I suppose, and I didn't even know what the product actually meant.
You never obviously used it.
But the point was, a very sensitive skin, but it's not like. But the thing was that when I signed that, okay, if I do it and if we do these pictures, the pictures were being done by Gautam. Mickey was doing my makeup. So it was
Mickey contractor, Gautam. These are big guys of.
I learned from them.
Yeah.
So it's in Gautam's studio that he taught me how to pose. I had never shaped my eyebrows. And Mickey was like, who the hell comes to a shoot without eyebrows being shaped? And I was like so frightened. And I remember him, he was the one who did my eyebrows. First time that's what was done. I didn't know that this had to be done. So I learned from the best, I would say. And
so these people became your mentors in a certain way.
Yes.
These are the first friends you also made.
Really, really nice people along the way, and they've turned into family also.
Like who all?
I got married eventually in this line, but yes, I have met like
To Goldie Bell, of course. Yes.
Yeah. But but what I would say is the thing that changed for me. What changed was when I signed that contract, and when I saw the check, which I had not even whatever you give, and what they said they will give was also like, what? I can make this. And that got me thinking, and I said, "My God!" And so my
what was the first paycheck?
It was, I think, some $5,000 per something. So eventually, my contract kind of added up to some $25,000.
Wow!
Like, what?
And which year is this?
To 90s, just about,
right.
So something like that, and so that was like I said, this world exists, and that's when I told my father. I said, no, come on. I said, whatever it is, look at my age. I have the time. I have age on my side. I promise you, give me 3 years. If this doesn't work out, I will do what you're saying. But look at the amount of money. If it works out, look, I can be set for life.
And set everybody else up as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of Wadala for sure.
I was like, dude, this needs to be done. And we was really struggling. My father was going through a very, very tough.
But why do you say that? He was in the government, right? Why would it be
because he was a very honest government officer. I'm being very honest. I didn't understand it at that time.
Right.
But now today, when I look back, I understand my father kept getting transferred. It was because he was never wanted in that position. Because he was always the cog in the wheel.
Right.
And he was the one who would say that, chalo, if you're doing it, I'm never going to do it. So that was, he was very clear about. So that
takes a toll.
That was, that does take a toll. And we didn't really understand that at that time, but it was very difficult for the family. For us also, while my father was going through this, we were growing up, the financial needs were more. And where family was concerned, for my father, he came from a biggish family. And because he lived in government quarters wherever he traveled, where the family stuff was concerned, he was happy to have written that off because my brothers needed. And the day when he felt the need for it, and when he asked, it was very clearly said that, what do you mean? So all those things were growing up. It was painful, and growing up always is. So it's not, I'm like, everybody has gone through some story like that. And I'm glad I went through it, because that woke me up. And that's why this amount was like, Baba, you're struggling so much, and people are saying so many things to you for this amount. And this is what I can make. And
this is legit money.
Exactly. And it's coming to me, and why would I not do it? But at the same time, if my father was not going through that kind of a struggle, and if I was not seeing how my parents were struggling and what they were feeling, I would have probably not stood up and said, I'm doing it. So that helped me with it.
And so just one thing led to the other?
Yeah. And there was no looking back.
And you were like, what?
At the end of the 3 years, there was no looking back.
16 years old to 17?
No, I was
18.
By the time my film released, I was 18, 19.
Right.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank, Shekhar.
I have to say, I was eavesdropping on a conversation that you guys were having right before this, and the anchor asked the craziest fan moment or something, right? And Sonali, I have to let you know that you are featured in a column I wrote recently, which is a travelogue, okay? And the travelogue is about, it's a mini travelogue on Bhopal. And I was exploring this aspect of Bhopal, which has a suicide culture for some reason. There are lots of lakes and lots of people kill themselves. I mean, it's not a huge number, but it's sizable. And for some really weird reason sometimes. In the 90s, a guy committed suicide because of you, Sonali. Because they couldn't meet you in Bhopal. And so they jumped into the lake, the main lake of Bhopal. Do you know this story?
ये सच है या
नहीं ये सच है मुझे बताया वहाँ भोपाल के लोगों ने बताया मुझे you know उसके बाद कटरीना कैफ के लिए भी कोई मर गया
नहीं यार हाँ किसी के लिए ऐसे थोड़ी कर सकते
but it's crazy but it's true in the 90s someone killed themselves because they couldn't find you, they couldn't see you, and you were visiting Bhopal, I'm presuming either for a shoot or maybe a press conference. They couldn't, and so they just, I mean, of course, it's a mental health issue. It's more than, yeah. But this is the first time you're hearing this?
First time I'm hearing.
But people in Bhopal talk about it, Sonali.
I see.
Yeah.
I have no idea about it.
Well, it happened back in the day. But you know, the 90s were a crazy time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, did you face anything of the sort around that time, like crazy fan moments or just people writing to you in blood? You know, these things were pretty common back then, no?
Yeah. You would get all this fan mail, and you know, there were times when I was like, should we test it to see if it is really blood? And then I said, you know what, actually, if it does turn out to be really blood, I'll be shattered.
Yeah.
So I think it's better that I don't know, and I presume that maybe they're saying it and appreciate it and leave it at that. But yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand that kind of obsession for somebody, because I think for me, where I come from, I just feel that how can you put any human being on that kind of a pedestal?
Right.
Because it's a human being, and he or she is going to fall off that pedestal because they're human beings. And so I could never put somebody up on a pedestal to that extent, you know. So I never understood this kind of.
But but you know, you were young, you were 18, 19, you are suddenly really famous.
Yeah.
You know, everyone can prepare you for lots of things, but fame is a hard thing to prepare someone for, right? Especially given that you came from what would be a middle class background with not even ambition along those lines. What was that like? And
when I went back home, they saw to it that they grounded me.
Okay.
My parents saw to it that they grounded me. I think the kind of upbringing I had, which was when you move from city to city, you're constantly breaking into new groups of people in school. You're used to being alone. You're used to being by yourself. You're used to being in a room where people are friends, but you don't know them. And that can be very... that kind of peer pressure and wanting to be accepted can make you do a lot of things, you know, sometimes. But because of that kind of an upbringing, I was okay to take my time, open my book, read, and, you know, kind of suss it out and do it slow, get to know people slowly. And I think that kind of kept me grounded. Because I was not opening out to people because I just needed to be with people.
You're not dying for validation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, so when that was happening, then you want to be invited to places, you want to attend the parties, you want to be seen everywhere. That was not my need. And I think that kind of kept me it kept me grounded. A lot of people do say that, you know, aap to dikhti nahi hai, to aapke liye role hum bhul gaye, kind of.
Because they want you to do that. They want you to hang around.
Exactly.
Right.
So that, I was told that a lot also, a lot of times. Aap to kabhi aati nahi hai, humne bulaya tha, farm house pe bhi bola tha, aap to aayi nahi. And I'm like, okay, I'll live with that. But I could live with that because I had been through it for so long since my childhood, you know, when every time you're breaking into new groups, and so there are always all kinds of people, and children can be very cruel. So that kind of, you know, you take your time, you see who can be friendly with, who you need to keep your distance from. So that kind of was heightened kind of understanding was there. And so that kept me grounded, I think.
Right, because, you know, the level of fame that you would have seen in the 90s, and, you know, that fame is also kind of different from the way it is now, Sonali, in the sense that progressively we see far more emphasis on performance, acting, roles, the quality of the films. But back then you...
Only about your stardom and or what you can call your charisma.
Your aura, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
About that, as long as you had that, the X factor. Because, you know, the fact is, Mayank, that after seeing all the talent shows and all of that also, the fact is that you can hone your talent. But X factor, either you have it or you don't.
True that.
That cannot be, like, you know, given to somebody or cultivated. It's there or it's not there.
And in some ways the camera chooses you, right?
Yes.
I mean,
I've been very lucky. I know that camera really loves me, and I did feel at home when I didn't know what the camera.
What is it? Do you remember the first shot that you gave
when
for a film?
Did it, I understood it, but when I stood there and when the lights were on and I looked at the camera, it never felt alien. It just always felt like I was home. Strange, but that was what it was. And I had no idea this world existed. Yet it always.
But you mean the still camera or do you mean the moving camera?
At that time, the first camera.
There was a still camera, yeah. But what about the moving camera? Do you remember the first shot that you gave?
No, I don't actually.
Okay.
But the memories are more of, because by the time moving camera had happened in ads for me. So I can't remember.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
You're already doing ads, right?
Exactly. But the still camera and that light and just the understanding of how, I don't know what it is, but how it can it's like a hug. It's very strange. So I always have felt very comfortable in front of the camera.
Like taking the light or being unconscious of the fact that it's on, that it's rolling.
Yeah, or everything else can be blanked out and it's the camera and
right.
I like it. Yeah.
Like there could be 1,000 people watching the shoot, but you would.
At that time.
Yeah, right.
Cameras made so much noise.
Yeah. That whirring sound.
And because you were dubbing, nobody respected the fact that there was a shot going on. They were chatting. They were doing exactly what they wanted. The cameraman, while you're doing the shot, could scream at somebody on the tarafa that put the light. Because you were dubbing it anyway, so it didn't matter.
Right.
Nobody cared that it could be matter to that.
Yeah, that it's still a performance going on.
Exactly, yeah.
But I have to say, like, for instance, of course, there's so many movies that you did and that we all remember. But I think if I were to place you in terms of how you would be remembered the most at this point, I think it's likely to be your playlist is going to be one of the best playlists of the 90s in terms of the songs that you featured in. It's incredible the number of amazing songs that you featured in.
Just before you came and I was talking, I said, it's ironical. I'm not a trained dancer. I'm not a trained actor. I've never done theatre, but I'm not a trained dancer. So songs, shows, shooting for a song was a nightmare for me. I went through sleepless nights. I would get acidity because of the stress I was going through. I was always scared of songs. And can you imagine, my career is based.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if the movie is not done well, I have done well only because of the songs that I was featured in and the song that is done well. And they've not all been dance numbers. I mean, my first popular song was Sambhala Hai Maine.
Right.
And it was just walking and it was just expressions and whatever. But it's the songs that have carried me through.
I think Major Saab had a phenomenal soundtrack.
Had great
yeah, Dilchale had amazing. But I think the one that breaks the mold, Sonali, is Humma Humma, no? Because
item song, as we call it now.
It got invented there, right there and then in that movie, and it goes so well with this podcast because the movie is called Bombay, and it's a film, the Bombay film. Please take us through the story behind you doing, I think, what was the first item song in Bollywood. Although technically it was a Tamil film, but it was a pan-India film.
And it was not shot in Bombay. It was shot in Chennai. It was Maniratnam film, and actually, I felt really bad that I didn't have the movie, but just one song.
Yeah. But you had Humma Humma.
It was not Humma Humma at that point of time.
Oh no, what was it?
No, I mean, it could be that song.
Correct. We don't know what's going to happen to that song.
I mean, like you said, this whole concept of that one song making something happen kind of happened only after that. I mean, if you were not in a movie, you could have that song in the movie and that working for you. But you're doing nothing in the movie.
You just come for that song.
Just for that song, not even for the entire song.
Right.
So that was also the thing. And then, and I remember them saying it. It was also I said, why should I do it? Why shouldn't I do it? And there were equal amount of people saying you shouldn't be doing it. You should be doing it. Then I said, you know what? But it's okay. I mean, I get to learn something. And at that time, the challenge in front of me was that I couldn't dance. I had an English Babu Desi name where Sarfarosh Khan was ready to kill me because I couldn't dance and I was playing a bar dance. So can you imagine what I was going through? I was struggling, like every hour that I was not working, I was trying to learn how to dance. And Ahmed was Sarojji's assistant at that point, and I remember Ahmed would bribe me with chocolates and ice cream. He would pick me up from my home in Lokhandwala, take me to a rehearsal hall, and he would teach me. And it was like, I can't do it, I'm fed up. And he would say, come on, one step more, just once more. This is the chocolate, this is the ice cream. He would literally bribe me like a little child. He has taught me. So then when Humma came and all this happened, and this.
So did you land this because English Babu Desi Prem?
No, I don't know why I landed it. I to date don't know why I landed it. But I remember eventually taking it on and saying that it's going to be. I remember that I was supposed to dance with Prabhudeva's brother. Prabhudeva and all was choreography. It was the choreographer. It was going to be killing dancing, and I said, you know what? If I'm going to do this, and if I've been rehearsing, if I can do this, great. And if I can't, then I know I should be going home. And so it was just something out of that kind of a weird thinking that I said, chalo, I'm going to do it. And I have these 3 days free. I'm getting this much on it. And the people who work with me, unka bhi per day nikal jayega. Chalo, let's do it. I'm going to be sitting.
So it was that, like I'm doing nothing right now. Let me just do Humma Humma.
And see if I'm really worth this. All this dancing that I've been doing, am I going to be able to do
all that you learned in English Babu?
Yeah, all for the other.
Yeah.
And so I went there, and I remember going to the rehearsal hall there, and like practicing, and the song was shot like more in really like one shot, literally the whole thing. Then they edited it, but they were doing really long shots, and I remember at one point when on the set Sundaram Masuji, Prabhudeva's father, had come, and he gave me that $100 and he said, it's amazing that you did this. And I said, oh my God, I have a place in this industry. I think I can pull this off, and there is something over here that I can look forward to.
You're listening to Bombay Film Story with Mayank, Shekhar.
Going back to the playlist, the Sonali Bendre playlist, which song would be number one for you from all the tracks? And I just mean it purely by the quality of the song, like what it does to you.
I think
personally.
Hosh Walo.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. That's a beautiful.
Sarfarosh.
Yeah.
So even
It's so special.
in those years that you were, in a certain sense, like I don't want to use the word item girl, but certainly the Bollywood heroine, the quintessential Bollywood heroine, where the movies are mainly male-led, right?
I didn't look like one when I came in, but yeah, I was. Yeah.
Right.
But that's what it was. You were in movies. If you were not the quintessential Bollywood, you couldn't be in movies because you were making.
Because those are the movies getting made.
The only movies that were being made. It was the single screen time.
Right. So there were like all these heroes, and there will be Sonali Bendre in that film. But would Sarfarosh be a little different in that sense from a filmography point of view?
Yeah, actually,
is that the one? Was that a turning point in some ways?
Everybody talks about Sarfarosh, but I remember telling John, I'm your comic relief in the film. I remember saying this to him, and that's a fact. I'm the comic relief in.
Don't mind.
Yeah, exactly. So,
where did don't mind come from? Is that something that was there in the script, or is there something like a takya kalam?
It was like John was very clear. He wanted something like that. There were a couple of options. I tried them out, and he said, "Yeah, I like this one." I did it.
Right, it really worked.
It was not like this thing. But like I said, that Sarfarosh was not a movie that was being made at that point of time. There were not movies that like.
Yes.
If you take me out and that relationship out, it's a documentary. In a certain way, if you look at it. So that was so important, that role.
It humanized the film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I loved the script, I loved the story. And I remember when John narrated it to me, and I asked him, I said, but there were certain things, because at that point also, you never narrated the whole script, because movies took long to make, and people just kind of took your sequences and put it in a film that was nearly ready, and it was out, and
Oh, that was the reason, huh? Not that they don't have it in their mind.
No, sometimes
they probably didn't have it also.
Some people didn't have it in their mind also, but a lot of times they didn't want to, because this is what would happen if you just get kind of stolen.
Yeah, because that actor is probably working another film and they are facing a problem. So वो मैंने सुना यही डाल देते हैं.
Something like
हो
that.
सकता है. Yeah, how will you can't. Yeah.
So John was not telling me everything, and so he said, this sort of a thing and all of that. I said, yeah, great. I mean, but but I'm a reader. I love stories, and so for me it was like I was more interested in the story. I said, yeah, but what about this character? You're not telling me something else has to happen here. He's saying, why would you say that? He suddenly, John went all serious and said, why would you say? I said, because the way you're setting this character up, you will have to, how do you close it? That's what happens in books.
Yeah.
It was not it was not some mind-blowing screenplay thing or anything of that sort. That's what stories do. You put up a character, and the way you build that character up is how it kind of lands somewhere.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, but I'm seeing this character, but it's not landing anywhere. So what is happening with this character? And he was like, why are you asking me? Then when I told him this was the thing, he's saying, oh my God, you're too smart for this. I said, okay, what is it? But I'm not going to tell you because I don't want the hook to be stolen, and that's the plot twist in the film, and I'm not going to tell. And it was Nasir Saab's role.
Correct.
So when he was telling me about that character, and I said, but
why is he there?
If not for this, I mean, why would you not? And then, of course, you know the hook.
Did you ever think that you were too smart for what you were doing? Like, you're a reader, you are a person without those ambitions, you land in Bombay because your parents happen to be in Bombay, but you're in a world which is very different from anything that you've known. Did you feel smarter than the people around you?
I wouldn't say that I felt smarter than the people around me. I didn't feel it like that. But I will be very honest with you that in those years, you definitely needed to dumb yourself down or portray that you were not smart enough. And that was the survival tactic for me. That's how I can explain that.
And this was true for everyone around that in that period, isn't it? I think they're all way smarter than they come across.
Because you see any of the actors or actresses as they were, heroines as they were called, you cannot last a certain amount because it cannot be a fluke for that long. You have to have something in you to be able to do that.
Right.
And you have to have some sort of a smarts in you to be able to navigate that whole system and to last out and to deliver what you were delivering.
True. The last time we met, Sonali, was, of course, we can see, broken news here. And the last time we met, you were the anchor. Yeah. And there were a bunch of journalists, including me. And, we were talking about the profession.
Did I do well?
You did fabulous job. I think what I really loved about what you did there was something I was saying about honesty. And you just picked on that point. Yeah, that's a good point. It's not about being honest. It's about being fair. And that's what a good anchor does, right? To pick a point that someone's made rather than make your own point, right? You were not making your own point, you were picking a point. And it just occurred to me coming here, like you've done an entire series, there's a second season on of Broken News. You really delved into that world of the newsroom, the world of journalism. What have you learned about journalism by playing it from the outside, of course, about the profession, about my profession?
I think there is a huge sort of respect for it. And when I say it's not like a pithy answer that I'm giving you. And I'll tell you why. Because from my exposure to journalists were the entertainment journalists.
That's right.
And, they're all amazing.
Yeah.
I really no shade on anybody. But that was the need of the day maybe or whatever it is. It's not a judgment. But the fact is that for me, from my point of view, most of the time I saw them as adversaries. So it was most of the time.
You also come from the 90s when there were all these glossy magazines.
And they were always on your set and usually were catering to somebody on the set. And hence they were definitely not catering to me. It never served the purpose to put my point of view across or that I could have one. So there was a very, I have had that very adversarial kind of a equation with the journalists.
With all of them? No one in particular or all of them?
With most of them. Also, I'm a very private person.
Right.
So, for example, like for the longest time, every time, I know exactly the 10 questions that will come to me. When you just spoke about it, you know it. There were those 10 questions that would be asked and nobody wanted to know anything beyond that. Now in those 10 questions, when did you start? How did you start? Who's your favorite actor? Which is your favorite color? Which is this thing they didn't even bother asking you if you were reading a book because they didn't think you were reading. So that was also not there. But in that situation, I would always, to the same magazine over a period of time, have given them randomly different answers. They've never caught it. Never.
Right.
And for me, that was entertainment for me. Because I was just in my own, now I understand that's a passive-aggressive way of dealing with things. And for me, I was just telling them that, look at you. Last time you asked me this question, I've given you this answer, you don't even remember that.
And well, you also don't remember that you have already asked this question.
Yeah, and you are not even interested in me. You have this idea of what I am. So even if I want to give you an answer, when you ask me something, you are cutting it out because you want to move on to a question that suits you. And then, of course, if ever you spoke about, there were some journalists who would have more depth to them. And if you ever, they said, but we can't help it. This is what you call the clickbait today, was the headlines then.
Yes.
Or the editorial pressure and whatever. So then as time went by, you started getting an idea. But today, after doing Broken News, I really understand the kind of pressures that journalists go through. That this is what is being read, this is what we need to provide. Everything else is like, they'll poor thing, that rookie reporter probably would take it to the editor and say, ये क्या, ये सब boring किसको पढ़ना है? ये affair किसके साथ है, वो लाओ. Probably be thrown at them and told that. So I understand that now. And so there's a lot of respect.
So do you think that entertainment journalists in particular, because that's a field that you've seen closely over the years, right? There's been spotlight on you, and they've obviously they'll be interested in your life to a huge extent. Do you think they've not focused on things that really matter to entertainment as a field or show business in particular?
Mayank, I have if as a journalist, when you are, say, covering the war or you're at a hospital or covering an accident, if you got something wrong, there's such a hue and cry about it. People get angry, they get upset that you did that. So that journalist is very particular about it. Entertainment journalists, people are like, तो ठीक है ना, actors ही तो हैं, उनके बारे में कुछ और बोले, how does it matter? They have such an easy life. That's the attitude is that.
You're dehumanizing them.
Exactly. And so if that journalist or reporter or whoever is not reporting, nobody cares that it's not the truth, because they think you have it so good anyway. How does it matter if you're feeling hurt?
Right, it comes with the job. It's an occupational hazard.
Yeah.
Right. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example, and something that happened about, say, 6-7 years ago, maybe a little less than, say, 3-4 years ago, which is the Me Too movement, right? And that was really led by entertainment journalists looking into show business as a field and the way women are treated, outing each one that they could find, being as responsible as a lot of them were. I'd like to believe. Do you think that was a good movement? That was something that you could make a difference to the world that you're reporting on?
If Me Too movement, see, there are two aspects to it also. I'm glad that a Me Too movement did start, but the way. What about other professions? If not, I actually genuinely believe that we are so much in the public eye that the Me Too in that sense is so much more curtailed here than it is in professions that you don't even know. You don't talk about it in the police officers, you don't talk about it in the lawyers or in the courtrooms, you don't talk about it in the corporate world. They're powerful people. It's so easy to talk about film and film people.
Because that's soft power.
Exactly. And soft targets.
Right.
So, right. So I would have more respect for the movement if it went across equally for everything and everybody who actually went through it. Then I would have more respect for it.
Since we're on a completely serious note, and I'm going to ask you my last question, which is obviously to do with you and a cause that you've taken up, which is so close to you for a very good reason, which is, of course, in 2018, Sonali, when you were diagnosed with the 4th stage cancer. And this is we've had conversations on this show and others where we just randomly ask people, when we felt close to death, for instance. It's like a standard trope question that we've asked in the past. In that case where you were, Sonali, and of course it's something that will stay with you forever as well. How did that change you as a person? How are you when you face that?
Yeah.
How does that change you as a person forever?
When you read so much, also when you read non-fiction also and all of that, this question and the answer to this always feels like you said, a trope question or a cliched answer.
Yes.
So my answer is something that I would have thought is a cliche, but it is the fact. And the fact is that when the time is limited and you don't know if you're going to make it, there's an immense amount of clarity because the bullshit is out. And the moment the bullshit is out, there's an immense amount of clarity about what is it that I have only this much time. What is your priority? Your priorities become so clear. And then you survive it and you start healing. And then you come to, as you start going, until a question like this comes, which reminds you that, oh my God, you got that clarity once.
Yeah.
You are clouding it again.
Again.
So thank you for the reminder.
Yes.
Because
You're
like
so
that
right.
clarity
Yeah.
is so important. And as we start living our life and leading, you start forgetting it. You again start getting caught up in various things. But there is that clarity when you look at life, when you know that you have limited time.
You cut all the bullshit out.
You cut all the bullshit.
You know, because I'm so glad you're saying this, because that's precisely what happened to the world. Say, for instance, 2021,
But
especially.
you're already forgetting it.
And I have a feeling that nobody remembers, as if it didn't happen.
Yeah. It's like
Anybody
you
I
don't
meet,
want to remember.
they don't want to remember, they don't want to talk about it. And I just felt the world will become a better place now, because they'll be able to see through that eventually it doesn't matter.
Somewhere, don't you feel that actually there are a few people who are treating it like that? But I feel a majority of it has gone back to certain ways of living with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Like a hedonistic kind of
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
It's just very, very shocking that you've been through it. And so some people say, oh my God, limited time. I cut the bullshit, let's do this. Some people say, oh my God, limited time.
Let me just
do
chill.
all this.
Yeah.
Let me just not bother. So yeah, it's two different ways. Different people look at it differently as well.
Yeah. So long as we do not forget.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Thank you so much, Sonali. This was amazing.
It's always a pleasure talking
Thank
to you.
you.
Because I remember even when you were covering movies, if there were any sort of a meaningful questions, they always came from you. And
Yay!
I remember that, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.